A quorum, this meeting is officially called to order. Madam Recording Secretary, will you please take roll call?
Commissioner McNair,
Yes.
Commissioner Hernandez, Commissioner Russell,
Here.
Commissioner Wu, Commissioner Gallegos,
Here.
Commissioner Katz. I see him, but I don't think he has a voice. Commissioner Fernandez.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Katz, if you have a microphone, that will be great so we can hear your voice. Thank you. We have a quorum. We can start.
Okay, great. So please rise and join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, at this time, members of the public may address the Arts and Culture Commission regarding any non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. No action may be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law. Madam Recording Secretary, does the public have any comments they wish to share with the commission?
I do not have any public comments.
All right, moving forward. This is the time for the commission to consider matters under the consent calendar, item number 1. Do I have a motion to consider item number 1?
Motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Did Commissioner Gallegos, did you second that?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any discussion about item number 1? Which is basically our attendance. Okay.
Correct.
So moving forward, then let's get a vote. Madam Recording Secretary, will you please call for a vote?
Commissioner McNair,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallegos,
Yes.
Commissioner Katz, Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Thank you. And for the record, Commissioner Wu and Commissioner Hernandez are absent today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We have Fernandez and Hernandez, so sometimes we trip over ourselves. So thank you. All right, then moving on, we will go to our work study session. We have one item under the work study session. Please note that there will be no motion or action taken on this item. This item is the Arts and Economic Prosperity 6 Economic Impact Surveys report by staff. Tramley, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair McNair. So just to recap everybody on the economic impact surveys, we are in November. This started around, we started collecting around, was it June, Chair McNair? I forget, sometime then. So since then, we've collected, and this is the economic impact survey that's done by Americans for the Arts, but we as a city have to help procure these surveys through arts organizations. So far, we have collected 301 surveys, and that represents 37.6% of the total sample, because we have to collect at least 800 surveys in order for it to be significant, so that they can see how much people are spending here in the city as they're coming to events, even for free events, and particularly for free events, so that to show that even then, the city brings in money as economic development through the arts. The report should be done by April 2023. So we have a few more months for that. And then they would deliver a report to us by 2023. So with that, and I have been updating and asking all artist grantees to collect to show the QR code, which is the easiest way, and collect surveys through the grant, through the project that they receive grants from the city for. But yeah, so if anybody else has any other ideas, or if you've been able to reach out to different events, let's talk about that. If there's a better way to do this, because so far we've only collected 37%, 38% of the total that we need. So how do we get up our numbers up? And they don't seem to be climbing exponentially. And the idea is to collect only 50 per event. And I know it's hard, even at the 50, because I know Commissioner Gallegos and Commissioner Russell have been out there pounding this pavement at different events to collect. And so let's talk about some of the challenges and maybe some ways. But yet Chair McNair has been able to, and Commissioner Russell have come up with great ideas of how to make it easier for these organizations to either project it onto the screen before showing a film, or even put it in the playbill of like live performance. That I think Chair McNair suggested that, to print it directly into the playbill. So as people are sitting there waiting for the event, they can just click on it. But there also needs to be a live announcement to call people to the attention to that. So what do you think? What are some of the challenges as you're going around, Commissioner Gallegos, let's just say, because I know that you work really hard for those movies at night. What was the biggest resistance or?
Well, everybody, I think, let's say in one of the events, if I asked 50 people, I literally had only one person tell me no. Everybody else was willing to, especially when I gave the option of, it only needs one person in the family. And at that point, they were willing to. Some people, I could see that maybe language might have been a barrier at the beginning, because I would see their faces start looking confused. And then I would say like, oh, I speak Spanish too. And then they would say, oh, great. And I think it was really wonderful that we had that Spanish version already set up as well, because they could easily kind of be a part of this as well. So,
Yeah.
But in terms of resistance, I didn't find much. I think the obstacle more for me was I couldn't get to basically every single person that was there at the event. I did get to a large portion. So the way I would start is I would start at one corner, and then I would snake down, for left to right, in each of the rows, and I was able to get, the most participation that way. However, by the time maybe the movie was starting, or a lot of people would say like, oh, you know what, my husband has my phone, my wife has my phone, somebody has a phone, or this person would be willing to do it, they're over there at the stands getting popcorn or something. So also if you could have, I know that there's a lot of city, what could I say, like kiosks there, whether it's the water or whether it's, Parks and Rec, whatever it is, if they had that there, and each of those kiosks would tell people, hey, we need this. You want to see more events like this? Then go ahead and sign up for this. If we had it at every single angle to where basically they couldn't say no, it would allow more participation overall. Because most people, what I found is they just need a little push. So
I think that's a good idea, because usually when the water people, they're usually standing there bored. So I think they wouldn't mind talking and interacting with folks. But part of it is also when somebody is coming to get water, that's all they kind of want to do. They want to grab the water and leave, versus like standing there. But they might be able to be coerced, especially as they're waiting for the movie to start or any event to start.
I will just really quickly mention, Tram, even if they want to just get water and go, it takes time to fill that water cup. So if you have like a short little spiel, and my thing was really, hey, if you, thanks for coming out to this event. If you want to see more of these events that are free for you, City of Santa Ana is asking us to fill out this survey so that they can give us more funding or continue the funding that's already there. And that alone I for me was a success, that people would just entice them.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they didn't even want to hear anymore at that point. They were like, stop, yes, so.
I agree. Like a sandwich board with the QR code at the entrance of an event would be really great. One of the obstacles I encountered at one of the movie nights, or at the theater night, Shakespeare in the Park, was that they already had a survey. So I would get people who said, "Oh yeah, we already filled out the survey," and I said, "Really? The arts OC?" They're like, "Yeah." And I said, "No, it's there's a second survey."
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we're competing against that. And then it did take a lot longer than I thought, because people want to chat a little bit, and they want to know, what's the purpose of this and who are you? So I think I underestimated how many people I could actually get to before a show started, and who weren't eating. Sometimes they're eating and enjoying the conversation with their family. So
Yeah.
we have to take those things into account.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is there an opportunity that we may be able to get some help from other departments?
I've asked Park specifically too, like when they do their events, but they said their staff, they don't also have a lot of staff, and then their staff are busy doing other things instead of standing there trying to gather information, or, they can't spare staff. But I did ask you at least just put it on your table. So, sometimes that works, but we're not their priority right now. So that's the only drawback.
But this also has to be about us activating the arts community.
Mhm.
There are so many events that are happening all the time. We physically cannot be at everyone's. We have to enlist the support. I went to a bunch of galleries, for example. I gave them the QR code. I asked them to post it, put it on their walls. The Frida Cinema. I remind people about things when I contact them. They said, "Yeah, we've got it up." Some don't. I think it's a constant reminder, and just putting that in front of people,
Yeah.
meaning arts organizations like Tram. I appreciate that you're following up with all of the people who were awarded grants
Mhm.
and funding sponsorships from the city, and asking for them to participate, because we've got to give back. But this is a call to action in the entire arts community in Santa Ana to get us on the map, to get the data that we need.
Mhm.
And honestly, I thought it would be a lot easier than it is. Tonight, Airmen of Note concert is happening after this. So I've recruited, because of that, we've recruited the high school, SAUSD and JROTC. So we're putting clipboards in the kids at the hands of the ushers, right, to help pass that around and be there. So how do we get creative, and because multiple times I've asked organizations, and then I show up to their events and it's not in their program, and it's not being projected, and it's not. So how do we create a sense of urgency is my question.
Yeah. I know Commissioner Katz, you were also very successful in getting a bunch of surveys for your event in your neighborhood. How did you do that?
I don't know. They were a captive audience. We had over 300 people for the concert. And we have some more events coming up. Question, are people permitted, is it one survey per person, or is it one survey per event? Meaning one person could fill out multiple surveys if they were at multiple events?
Yes, because they would be there for different reasons, and
And you can have
All right.
one person represent a group of people. So if there's several people together in a group, one person can fill it out for that group, and they document that information in there. It's the same survey at multiple events.
and they may have spent different amounts of money for each event.
Well, we got a bunch of events coming up,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
and
I think because go ahead. I'm sorry.
and I've got the Santiago play coming up December 1st, 2nd at for Puff. I can do that. I think we as a neighborhood are going to attend that as well. So I got opportunities coming up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Even if just, I know it sounds like just 50, but I know it is hard to get 50 even. Commissioner Gallegos?
Yeah. Every time I would see like something happening, like, movies in the park and whatnot, I would always think like, God, what a missed opportunity this is for us to not be able to like, I mean, I wouldn't be embarrassed to go up there like on a microphone and say like, okay, everyone, I need, you know, this many, whatever. I would get a lot of participation that way. And I kept seeing, but I wasn't sure if it was like appropriate to ask, because I know that every time we talk about certain things we can and can't do, I didn't know what was actually appropriate. But sometimes even when I would see like a council member up there, I'm like, I know that they're the ones asking this essentially from us. So should we not be up there with them and say like, hey, we're going to take, you know, 5 minutes to do this? You know, I think, is it possible to do that? Because the movies in the park, it's come and gone. You know, what other events are we going to be able to do this that where we have people looking at us, you know?
Yeah, but you can. That would be absolutely fine to just make that quick announcement, and then that gives you more cachet to go around. And I find that wearing that shirt really helps. When I go to an event, I wear that shirt and I'm approaching somebody and saying, can you please fill out the survey? They don't question it as much. Like, who are you? What is it? Clearly, I'm with the city of Santa Ana, you know? So that helps. Everybody has their shirt, yes? Yeah, okay. And then when people say, oh, I don't have my phone, I whip out my own phone. I say, oh, I have a phone. I'll scan it for you and I'll wait right here, you know, while you fill it out. So yeah, I'm sure, I know some of them are like, oh, I want my husband to fill it out or whoever else.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yeah, Commissioner
I don't know if it's a stretch, but just to kind of think of ways to propagate this information, kind of following up on what Commissioner McNair said. Is there a way to, I guess, you know, there's tons of events happening all the time and all that needs permitting, right? So there's obviously 1, 2, or maybe 3 people that know what's happening all the time. Is there a way that we could recommend to everybody that's planning from that source, even if it's just like having them like, hey, we recommend that this happens, and just providing them with the AEP package, the links, all that stuff, but basically at that source. So if I'm a nonprofit in Santa Ana, you know, I don't know anything that's going on, and I go to to get a permit to do an event. When I get there, they go, oh yeah, here you go, everything is fine. By the way, we're strongly suggesting that XYZ, you do this with the AEP survey. I think that would be a powerful tool to kind of get it there. I don't know what that would entail and how much work that would be for city staff. But I think if we kind of prepare that language, I think it could be as simple as when, I'm sure some of this communication is through email, so maybe an attachment to a response would probably be a most automated way, but I think it would be a great way to get that.
I would like to add that one of the things coming up, I'd like to see if we could partner with Parks and Rec. I don't know if we attend their meeting, we send a liaison, but here's the deal. For example, the city is putting on the winter ice skate area. They're going to have vendors, they're going to have student performances, they're going to have other performers and things that are happening. So how do we activate a contingent of folks, perhaps the Parks and Rec team too, to have those things on hand during the weeks that it's happening? Because I think it starts right after Thanksgiving and it goes all the way through January. In addition, how do we activate and leverage our community liaison who oversees the activation in the downtowns, the businesses and things like that? Because the businesses are putting on events, some literary events, community events, and other kinds of things to post something in their space, right? And get the businesses to say, hey, make sure you fill this out. Because just to get a broad web of these surveys up all the time. And maybe people that are there are eating at that restaurant or visiting that local merchant are there because they were brought there because of an event that was going on that's arts and culture related.
I think there's Art Walk is coming up, essentially in a week on December 3rd. The Winter Fest runs almost a full month. It starts on December 8th. And then there's a Tamal Fest. I forget, I think the location might have changed. Maybe it's Birch Park, and that will be December 12th. I imagine if we all tried to mobilize and 5 and 10 surveys, we could definitely get a good little bump there through the holiday season.
Yeah.
I imagine again in this new year, there'll be a lot more energy and more events to attend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Garcia, I'd like to see if maybe you could comment on what Commissioner McNair just mentioned. I think it's a great idea. Maybe we could piggyback off of Parks and Rec and be sort of the data collector, since data is so important to us right now.
Oh, I think that's definitely something that the staff needs to check in with Parks and Rec, make sure that this is something that they can handle. And I don't see that it's that it shouldn't be that onerous to undertake. So
Great.
I'm happy to serve as the liaison if Tram would maybe, if that's appropriate, like find out when their meetings are, have a meeting with the Parks and Recs folk. Like they have the tree lighting ceremony coming up this weekend, right? Is anybody going to be downtown? Because they usually have music groups and things like that going on. So a lot with the winter festivals and things happening, there's plenty of opportunities to get more surveys.
Yeah. And even if each of you even if you collect 10, you don't have to collect 50, but they add up more, then because there's 6 of you, say, so that's 60, in a month, and then it keeps adding. But hopefully other nonprofits are also collecting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna just reply to that. I think that we can continue to do a great job, but I definitely like to highlight what Commissioner McNair said. I think this is the arts community as a whole. I think we should definitely be intentional to activate outside of ourselves if possible.
If you have connections to these arts, or you have a more personal connection, that you can say, hey dude, here's a QR for them, what I send you, and say, just help us collect.
Sure.
We have to appoint them to be part of this distributed leadership to do this. And I'm thinking of it as like scatter data graph, right? Even if we got a couple of surveys from every little thing, we can see the broad connection. I'm wondering too, Tram, if Travel Santa Ana, who spent time to do the surveys and identify that Santa Ana is actually a very vibrant arts and culture community, which is an attractionary part of Santa Ana, that we could connect with them through their channels to see if surveys could be in hotels or things that people, I don't know.
No, because it has to be a nonprofit org. It has to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
see.
it can't be businesses like that.
Okay. Too bad.
Yeah. I thought of some of those things. Like I would see the Den have events, but that's a for-profit,
Is there a place where we could or could we let's say there's something going on tonight and we can have, I don't know, maybe one of Santa Ana's Instagram accounts or social media accounts or somewhere where we can get out there for tonight and publish the link as a story. If the story would,
they kind of say, we can,
because it's 12 hours. It would only live for 12
they kind
hours.
of say that you have to do it at the event. They don't like it when, even like after the event, I'll email my whole, list and tell them to send in the gift. They don't even want that. But Commissioner
I
Gay,
understand.
Part of the reason that they want people to do it at the event is because one of the questions that they ask is essentially like, how much have you spent here? Because they want to know, would we have gained money if we did this for you as opposed to not doing it? And the other thing is going off of what Wizza was talking about in terms of like the permitting side. That's a really great idea, but even us for information, because the events that I know that go, like there's not a place where I can go to where I know all of the events that are happening in Santa Ana. it's just like I have to go on this one account and then I have to go on to this other account. So when it comes to this committee, I know what was funded through us. So that's why I know the dates. But in terms of like what Commissioner Russell was saying about the Tamal Fest and those types of things, those are separate. So if we somehow got the information even like in one place, even if it was from the permitting side, at least for me, it would be easier for me to just look at my calendar and say, okay, I can do 2 hours here, I can do an hour there, I can do 3 hours there. It would be so much easier for me. And then that way, especially having that t-shirt that we have, we would have much more ability to go up to the person heading the event with the microphone and say, hey, can I borrow your microphone for 5 minutes?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've sent you the list already of all our grantees, if you want to attend that, like the Tamal, they were one of our grantees. But you're right, there's so many that whose list will they be on? They don't all tell the city, but you're right, they have to go through a permit process, but it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be up on the city website. Because I think unless it's city sponsored, then it doesn't really go up on the city website. And then unless they got a grant from us, they won't be on our site. So it's all scattered. There's no one central calendar, unfortunately. I agree.
And then
I'll resend that list of our grantees if you want to get with the date and location.
Perfect. Yes. And also, I just wanted to mention that, the Santa Ana Zoo always has like free days, like every month.
Yes.
So that should be like a very obvious one where if the families are coming and say like, hey, if you like these kinds of events that's free to you guys, we need this from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've reached
there's
out
so many
to
events there.
Yeah, I've reached out to the director of the zoo and he is very supportive. It's just I think they're so understaffed that it's just so hard when the day comes, to be like, oh, and plus we have to do the survey. Maybe like what Commissioner Russell was saying is that we're competing with other surveys that they wanted to. So why are they pushing our survey when they need their own? And that happened with the Bowers. They helped us. They did a few, and then they're like, you know what, Tram, we have to do for other grants. We have to do these surveys too. So it's too much for our audience, our constituents.
If I just wanted to mention one more thing. I know because Wizzo, you were speaking about like you had this board with a big QR code. If it was something that even didn't require a person, but rather this big QR board, and they just they already know what it's there. It already says what it is, as opposed to having an actual live human there. It wouldn't cost them any more employee kind of hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess I'll definitely I wrote down all your suggestions and your feedback. Reaching out to the water folks at these events, that's a good one. Even looking into having a sandwich board through Parks and Rec, and letting, having, I was saying, do you want to see more events like this kind of stuff? And maybe it might entice some folks. I'll talk to different, like the permit folks to see if they can help. So I will talk internally to a lot of departments and agencies, see how much they can help us, Parks and Rec and all of that. But and I will send out the list of grantees to all of you. So if you can pick and choose, like what Commissioner Gallego said, even an hour of your time, whatever, half an hour, I don't know, whatever and just gather as many as possible. But most importantly, like Chair McNair and Commissioner Fernandez said, engage with the nonprofits, and tell them, please do this and take, help distribute that, take the weight off our shoulders for a little, or share the weight.
Thank you for that, Tram. And also I'd like to add one more thing to your list, if it's possible. You know how you activate and you put an all call out to, organizations? Why not just do another reminder? Here's the information. Maybe we even do a monthly reminder. Are you getting your surveys? Kind of a thing, like you have the all call that you do with that various artists, your lists. Did you have a comment, Commissioner Katz?
I just want to ask, Tram, again, give me the criteria again for what events qualify.
It has to be a nonprofit, which neighborhoods qualify for that because you have your own nonprofit. And that's it, really. It doesn't even have to be free. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's free or not. That's really it.
No. But what's the it? What qualifies as an arts and cultural event? It's at an arts and cultural event, correct?
Yes, yes.
So what qualifies as that?
I
Yeah.
think it could be very broadly defined. What are you thinking of that you're questioning?
I don't know. I'm going to be at the Modern Day football game tomorrow night. I'm sure the band will be performing. Is that considered? No.
No, I don't think so. I think the mission of the event has to be geared towards arts and culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
And toward the economic.
That's a good question, though.
impact, yeah.
Huh?
Toward the economic impact of what the nonprofits are doing to generate the traffic that draws people here. We
Yeah,
can capture that information.
yeah. They have to have come for that event that is arts. So people are coming to the Modern Day football. They're coming for the football. They're not coming for the arts, for the band. So that's why that wouldn't qualify. So we're trying to say, look, these art events attract people. So it could be as small as you want or as large. as you want.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Prem, I had a question. So, with the whole ad hoc, with the whole the artist registries, having Santa Ana Inc. and also having the other one. Let me just see
Downtown
what-
Inc. You mean, and Santa Ana Business Council.
Correct. We have Downtown Inc. and the Arts OC. Having those two registries, I'm curious, is there any way to, do they ever like email blast them, or is it just kind of a Rolodex that's on physical, like where there's no way to contact everyone? Because I thought if these people are having events within their own, within Santa Ana, couldn't we also give them that QR code?
Could I step in on that?
Yes.
Two things. One is we're going to be talking about the a registry and do the findings about that. Two is that the bid district, the business improvement district with Downtown Inc. and Santa Ana Business Council is gonna be no longer after the end of this year. So as of December, it will be dissolved. So that product will not be available. So if we could move the discussion, if we feel complete on this discussion about the economic prosperity study, and move to the next item, which is to have a report about the artist registry by the ad hoc subcommittee. Are we ready to move on? Okay, so let's move on. The artist registry ad hoc subcommittee will provide an update. I believe that's Commissioner Russell.
And Commissioner Gallegos.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We were both able to meet with different entities and arts leaders, both outside of the state of California and locally, kind of in the Long Beach area, for ideas about what other groups are doing and what works, what's worth the cost, because all the options that we explored involve some kind of cost, some kind of customization and maintenance costs to continue to operate. So one of the things, the findings that I took away from these conversations was you can go very generic and have something the equivalent of like a Yelp that would be just very generic in terms of like the framing, the landing page, et cetera, for any artists, right? And, someone who was interested in finding artists in Santa Ana would have to use filters basically to find artists in this area. And, one of the arts leaders we spoke with recommended that was not really advantageous because the filtering and all the steps involved really impeded that process. It also impeded the ability to promote Santa Ana very specifically. So the arts leader who we did speak with, who was able to get one funded and customized for the city of Long Beach, it was I think they had 3 staff members who were needed to support that process because there was a lot of vetting of the artists. But in addition, there was also a lot of customization. Anyone who works with the websites know that that does, you have to get the design right, you have to get, the collaboration right, and updating constantly. So that was beneficial, and it did result in more exposure for the artists, more opportunities for the artists, and economic development. But again, there were a lot of costs associated. I don't know at this time that that's something we have the bandwidth for.
Thank you for that report. anything we want to add to that, Commissioner?
Yes, so I know that Tram had spoke to Cynthia Lujan, which is one of the artists I'm sure you guys know. And she's actually on the Long Beach Arts Council. So it's something that she has been involved with, kind of playing with this, these different structures of how to do artist registries. And the one that they have, it is wonderful in the way that it's set up. It is very specific to their artists. It's not like find me a ceramic artist and it pulls up someone in New Mexico. You are going to find one in Long Beach, along with like photos of what they've done, their work and whatnot. But the thing is that she did also say that, per their conversation, is that it was extremely labor intensive, making sure that are these artists still practicing, and are they still practicing in that city? Those types of things that they were involved with. So the maintenance, aside just from the vetting, she did suggest that there are 2 artist registries already in existence, which is the Downtown Inc. and also the Arts OC. But as Commissioner McNair was saying, is it the Downtown Inc. that's being dissolved?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that would leave us with the Arts OC. That would be the only other one that we are going to have essentially at our disposal until, until we get funding to kind of make up something a little bit bigger or add to the one, the Arts OC one. And I think that's all that I have.
One more detail. Another feature for Cynthia Lujan, I think that justified in some ways the funding of such an entity. I don't think it was funded by the city. I think it was funded by like a PBID. So they factored that into the PBID process. But there was a lot of conversation between local businesses and the organizers, like the city organizers of events. So when they would have sort of a version of Art Walk, I think they had like an alley walk in different areas. There would be conversations with all the business owners to say, can you please hire a local artist to play music, to display art on the walls? And when our businesses said, well, how would I find somebody? They then had the registry to back it up. So it was a bit of like a cycle, right? Where there was like an expectation that this would be used by the businesses for art sponsored events. And so I think those relationships were built in advance. And so it really justified the cost, and it helped, attracted them to that site for that purpose.
Yeah, thank you. That's such an important way of driving the economy too, is to have a way to connect with artists. One of the reasons that the registry started in Santa Ana through Downtown Inc. was actually through a collaboration with the city and the local businesses to support artists in a series of roundtables. And that was one of the byproducts. We also supported artists to get their headshots to be put on that, write their artist statements, and equip them with that knowledge. The unfortunate thing is we don't have anybody to manage it. So with the constructs of developing these structures, we need to know who can manage it. We're a volunteer board. We're not hired as staff to do it. And the staff that we have doesn't have the bandwidth to be able to do at this point, which is part of what we need to do to invest in the arts, and why we go back to let's get the economic impact data, because we got to build the infrastructure to be able to give artists a way of being contacted. And it came because local businesses didn't know how to get in touch with our local artists. So you bring up some very good points. And to that end, go ahead. One more, and Commissioner Gallegos, if you want to add any remembrances here. Cynthia Lujan also commented that it was very advantageous not to have it city run. While it seems like the natural entity for such a place, she's found a lot of advantages to having it sort of operated by an outside agency. I think in terms of, just the bandwidth, the ability to customize, and I can't remember exactly what other, it's escaping me the other reasons, but that was a very important point for her.
I think one of the things had to do with also vetting, because if the city puts their mark of approval on something, it has to kind of, fill in all these like legal gaps of make sure it's nothing that is going to shock people too much. And then the city gets in trouble and it opens them up for liability. So I think that that's one of the things that she was talking about. One thing I wanted to mention in terms of like funding, one of the ideas that both New Mexico and actually Austin gave me is they said, look, if you don't have too much money for, really much, I know that here in Santa Ana, we predominantly have been like mural kind of oriented. However, what they said is we started seeing the most money when we started putting it into music, because music started bringing people together, lots of people together, and that's what really started to generate dollars around that. So even if you look at like the bachata and the salsa nights and stuff, the amount of people that show up to, like, you know, right next to Worst House, it's crazy, and all they have is like some speakers playing music. It's not even live music. Obviously we would love to work up to being able to pay for live music, but if that's all they need is speakers and some music just to kind of get people moving, to maybe put out some kind of you know, I don't know, if the city needs to see why we need some tax dollars, I mean, maybe we can point them to that.
Commissioner Fernandez.
I have a question, just maybe some clarification. When I go to the sanana.org website and to artist registry, there's two places that I can click. Are those the places that we're referencing? One of them is Spark OC, and then the other one's sananaarts.org. There's already a registry built on that?
Correct.
Okay.
I believe so, but again, that hasn't been maintained. So there are artists who are referenced on there who don't live in California anymore. And as I said, you know, after Cynthia Lujan mentioned the liability issues, is there the bandwidth for anyone to do that vetting? And then on top of it, do we want the city to give stamps of approval to artistic merit? You know, I know in a grant scenario or funding scenario, there is that sort of component, but this opens it up into a whole nother realm.
I have another question as well. sananaarts.org, that's, who owns that?
That was run by Downtown Inc.
Would we be able to just talk to them about, I mean, is there a reason we can't build on top of this in the future? Right? So when we do have some money to support this, I come from a pretty extensive technology background, and generally sometimes things sound more complicated when we talk about them than when it's actually built. The hardest part of putting something together is actually like building it. Supporting it is extremely simple, very, very simple. So if there's already a platform and we just need kind of a framework and an idea to work around with, I think both of these sites, especially sananaarts.org, would be more than sufficient. And I can tell you from looking at this that this is not a very complex thing. It just looks like it would be. But I think the more complex thing is the vetting and the actual way that we handle, like putting artists, and I think that has more complexity than maybe just taking over what's already been built. So maybe we could see about acquiring that or having them donate that too, since they are going to dissolve.
I think that's a great idea. I think the challenge is that, as was brought up, it is not recommended that the city owns that. But if you, as an artist and a local person, want to connect to Downtown Inc., for example, and you want to talk to them about you want to take that on, or we find something, because that is the exact issue, is the management of it, and who do we want and how do we maintain it, right? And there, without any funding from the city on that, to keep it alive. But it would be sad to lose that infrastructure that we invested in to help build the arts community. How do we keep it alive?
I don't know anybody at Downtown Inc., but maybe if somebody does, I would.
I'll connect you.
Yeah, I if they don't have any attachment to this, I could strip this down, and I do have a nonprofit that I could support this under. And when there is, when we do have things to kind of fuel us more, then we can maybe talk about making it bigger. But I could look at just chipping away at this on my free time through my nonprofit. But it would be much easier to do that with something that's already kind of built than to have to build it from the ground up.
One other idea that relates to something that was already said was leveraging the city's social media to promote artists. Maybe there could be a monthly, weekly feature where a local artist, particularly an artist who might be having a gallery opening or something, or some kind of event, or some kind of update, a new album or something like that being released, we could spotlight artists like that in a social media way. Again, I know that would require some money to do that, but that seemed like a sort of a middle ground until there did appear to be sufficient funding to sustain something like this.
And that's something also that Downtown Ink did with their weekly newsletter. They would spotlight local artists on a regular basis and things that were happening in the events. So we wanted a centralized calendar, but you could get a weekly glimpse of all the many things that were happening. And so we do need to find a way to have some communication and augment that. And so I don't know if it's possible through the city, but to at least, who submits the content? Is it the commissioners volunteer like we rotate to find an artist that want to feature and give content to TRAM to give to the city? Like we have to figure out the logistical thing, because we can make these nebulous calls for things, but what is the actual practical way that's going to be implemented?
I imagine you could create a quick 5-question Google form even, artist name, land web page or links, bio, and samples of artwork. Even just, again, to help get names out there and help people be aware of like all the different kinds of artists. Like, we have ceramicists, we have, people in the culinary arts, people who are, creating electronic music, things like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I think part of the biggest difficulty that a lot of these people had that they all kind of shared was not having a Wizzo, basically. So that was kind of a really big difficulty because, for me, I'm more analog. I was thinking more like, oh, well, I can probably stop at like the paint section, Home Depot, and just collect everyone's name, phone number, and email, because I don't have the ability to like create or develop a website. The question does come into because you are arts commissioner, if you absorb that through your nonprofit, does that make you connected with, or does that open the city for liability because you are on the commission? Like those types of questions, I think were some of the things that maybe we're trying to be told to us of like why we would want it separated from the city. But I think if you get paid, even if it's just the $50 per the meeting, I don't know, are you considered an employee, TRAM?
No, you wouldn't be.
Okay, so I don't think that you would have much liability there personally, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I have sat back here a couple of times and I did want to say things, but I don't know what those implications might be for the exact same reasons you just said. There's certain things where I do have a nonprofit, there's certain frameworks that we've established, but I don't know how to kind of position my help as well. And I think it's for the rest of us as well. There's a lot of things that we would want to do and help. And I think we're all trying to figure out the framework for ourselves.
So go ahead, Steve.
TRAM, I'm just curious on something like this, for example, if Wizzo wanted to, kind of be able to help in this way, would that be something that either the city manager or the city attorney would be able to say like, oh, you can or can't do that? Or I know that before Mr. Garcia, it was the other, we would get the advice from the other guy. I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
Ryan.
But,
Ryan.
Ryan Hodges, I think. So, I mean, who would we come to for that now?
That's what I was going to ask, is if we could assign this conversation to let staff do some research, come back to us and let us know what are the implications, since we don't have legal representation right now, to just give us some time to investigate and bring it back to the commission.
Thank you. We would appreciate that. We didn't have a legal representation at the Community Development Commission last night or today, and we may not always be able to get city attorney to attend, to send a representative to meetings in the future. I know that there was a question from our legal counsel about when and why, and why. And so it may be situations like this where Tram and I would take these type of scenarios and questions back to legal counsel and return to you all for a response. Just from my perspective, I don't think it would be too much of an issue as far as you all as individual members of this commission to be involved in. And I get it where if with trying to use your nonprofit might be in that website might be a little, that might pose some challenges with Downtown Inc. Given the action that occurred on Tuesday night at City Council to begin the dissolution or the disestablishment of the Business Improvement District. I don't know where that's going to leave Downtown Inc. and Santa Ana Business Council. They are separate legal entities that exist, and they have their own boards. They are 501c6s, so they could technically keep operating within the downtown and almost function like a Chamber of Commerce would. So instead of receiving assessment revenue that's passed through the business license process through the city, they could go and collect membership fees from businesses in the downtown and keep operating very similar to the way Travel Santa Ana does, to the way the Santa Ana Chamber of Commerce, and I believe even South Coast Metro Alliance does. So, but I don't know if they're going to want to. It's possible they're not going to have the same, I guess you would say, drive to keep Downtown Inc. and SABC going. So we're kind of in flux right now. So.
And the last thing I wanted to mention, Wizzo, if you were curious about the vetting process, some of the cities that I talked to, what they did is they would have you would have all your people submit, who I am, what I do, all these things, and they would have these rounds actually of kind of approval. And whoever did not make the first cut, they would move on to the, kind of in this way until they were able to say, okay, now these people have met all of the qualifications. But there was like multiple rounds to ensure that nobody falls through the cracks.
The Arts Council for Long Beach, if you were interested in checking out their website to see kind of, again, how they thematically organized artists and had a calendar, et cetera, that would be a good place to check out.
So thank you for this report. We appreciate the update and the action steps we're going to have our staff, Tram, go back and do some research about that. And I will follow up to connect Commissioner Fernandez with the Downtown Inc. group to see about the artist registry and follow up with that. And then we'll be able to report out at the next meeting. So that'll be the agenda. I would like to say that a lot of what we've surfaced, the implications of being able to move forward are all tied to budget constraints. The fact that we don't have a sustainable budget. And so to that end, I want to acknowledge the great work that Commissioner Vu did in presenting us with an analysis or a deep dive look into our strategic plan last time, and the fact that they came up with some recommendations of things we can address now without any money. I call it the serenity prayer of the arts, right? What is out of our control? What is it that we can do today? And what is it that we need to look for in the long run? So to that end, I would like to create an ad hoc committee, Tram, with myself, Commissioner Vu, and Commissioner Fernandez to meet to look at those action steps of what can we do right now with no funding, and dive deeper into the actions that we can do as a commission to keep working. Because this I know these folks are here because we all care and love the arts and we want to do the work. So what is it, the work that we can be doing? We know we can be out collecting surveys and in between the other things we do in our day jobs, we might be working on an artist registry, right? But we also can come up with some other action steps so we can all stay engaged in between. So that's what I'd like to move to do, please. Did you want to make a comment, Mr.
Well,
Garcia?
it may be appropriate during staff member comments, or if we're moving to that, if not, what I wanted to say is, I want you all to feel empowered and open to coming up with ideas and even moving forward on them. We had a Parks and Rec Commissioner, Jim Kendrick, way back when, who worked under Pat McGuigan in Ward 6, and then he continued when I was on City Council. I had him as my Parks and Rec Commissioner for about a year and a half, and he had been on his own working on getting, I'm trying to remember what it was. I don't remember if it was the carousel, that was in the Plaza Cuatro back in the day, if it was the Ferris wheel at the zoo. He was getting some big piece of equipment from San Jose, and he was on the State Parks and Rec Commission. And so he was working on this big donation with the city, and he organized all of that. All we had to do was our city staff had to organize, obviously, putting it in place, going and picking up and bringing it. But he did all of this on his own. And so I want to encourage you guys not to feel too, I mean, he ran it by staff. He talked about it with the Parks and Rec Commission, and everybody liked the idea, and he went off and did it. I'll give you another example. When I was on Santa Ana Council, the Wildlands Conservancy wanted to create the Santa Ana River Task Force. They wanted to create a conservation easement on the Santa Ana River. They are still, 17 years later, still wanting to create a conservation easement on the Santa Ana River. And I wanted to see how I could help them. There was no money there to make any of this happen. So I was able to get some help from our Parks and Rec director, some of his staff like Ron Ono and Kevin, and the four of us went to work on putting together a Santa Ana River Task Force group and a document. So I went out and recruited people from the neighborhoods. I put together all the parcel maps and the aerial maps, and I drafted some of that task force report over like a 6-month period. So I gave up a lot of my free time as a council member to make sure that document got put together. And so you guys as commissioners do have that power. You guys are obviously giving a lot of your time, not just attending these meetings, but we want to make you guys feel comfortable to take on projects, after running it by city staff and making sure everything seems good. So we're going to take these discussions today back to our city attorney, make sure everything, is okay. And then, we want you guys to feel comfortable moving forward on projects. This commission is a lot different than Planning Commission, a lot more different than Community Development Commission. This is a lot like our old Santa Ana Youth Commission used to be. They would come up with projects that they would implement in their schools, and they'd come up with activities that they would go and handle with, So you guys are a lot more, you're not only an advisory body, you're also more of you guys take on more activities and projects that it's almost like you guys operate more freely than Planning Commission does, and the CDC. They're kind of told what to do and act on these reports, act on these applications for general plan amendments or whatever. You guys are kind of working where you guys come up with your own things sometimes, and we're here to help you make those happen. And then other times, Tram's got an idea for something that's come from a council member or internally from staff, and we present that also to you all. So you guys, I want you guys to think of yourself as having a lot more power, I guess, and more fun than other commissions. So,
Well, thank you, Mike. We appreciate that guidance and you freeing us to be able to do that. I will say it is about it. I will encourage us to leverage the relationships that we do have. I know, for example, it was when the Mexican consulate came and brought the Wings of the City and Tram, and they worked together with the city to make that happen, but it was brought by outside entities. But we can be facilitators of that and also create plans. So when the money comes, we can just say, this is what we're going to do. Like how Mike just described the infrastructure of what they spent doing. So they still want to have that done all these years later. When the money comes, they're ready. That's what I would encourage. So thank you for leading us into staff comments. Tram, are there any additional staff comments?
No, I don't think I have any staff comments at the moment.
I have more staff comments. I want to thank you guys for all the work you've been doing. I know what it is to dedicate free time towards these type of endeavors. It's very important in our city to have people like you giving of your time. So in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to thank you all for your service. And I hope you all have a great, safe, happy, fun Thanksgiving.
Thank you. And to you. We appreciate your support for making this commission happen. All right. Moving on to commission member comments. Would anybody like to make any comments? Commissioner Fernandez.
Just wanted to further encourage all commissioners to speak with their councilmen and getting active. I had a chance to speak to Councilman Hernandez, which is my ward's councilman, and made him aware of basically our budgetary needs. We had a very interesting conversation, and a lot of positive ideas came out of it. There was a lot of just not being aware of our needs. So I think it's pretty important that maybe we all go back to each one of our councilmen and councilwomen and let them know our status, our goals, and together, getting together and like Commissioner McNair said, we having a plan and acting on it. But I think more than anything is just having that initial conversation, just so that they are aware. I'm personally very active with Councilman Hernandez, and that's the role that I'd love to take. But I think that if all of us together just divide and conquer in a sense, just get that, plant that seed, I think it when the time comes and the budgets do become available, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to grow our platform. More importantly, our means to produce, having a larger staff to be able to execute bigger projects, having more budgets for artists. I think that's what we want. And I think that starts with the conversation. So I further encourage everybody to have those dialogues now, so that when the time comes, everybody can act on it.
Thank you. Any other additional commissioner comments?
Yes, I had a question actually for Tram. So since they are going to dissolve that downtown kind of Inc., I guess, does that mean what's going to happen to Art Walk? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I think that's what Mike was saying about it. They're not necessarily dissolved. They're just not receiving funding from the city. And so they're still an organization. They can choose to move forward whatever's reasonable for them. But let's just say they no longer are motivated or whatever reason, then Art Walk will, as it is, as you know, they will not organize Art Walk anymore. However, we did fund through the artist grant, through sponsorship funding that the commissioners that you all selected. There are a few smaller art walks out there, like I think, oh my goodness, I forgot his name, Camacho. Moises is doing something. I don't know if he's still continuing. There are a few people who are doing, smaller versions of our walks. But yeah, but if another organization wants to do it and step up and do it, they're more than welcome to.
And so what I can say is that we believe that any remaining assessment money or revenue that the city has, we have to disperse back to Downtown Inc. and SABC. So they will have some money there. Before we give them that money, we're going to want to make sure that they're going to stay viable for a little bit of time, and we're going to want them to show us how they're going to use that money. And so I would think that there should be some capacity for them to at least continue with artwork. When I don't know when, how long, how much money, and when all of this is going to happen, but there should be some money there that we legally have to disperse out to those two entities. So. And
one thing I wanted to ask you, Mr. Garcia, since I know you were involved in like the real estate, or you know a lot about that. There is a piece of land right there in downtown Santa Ana where the fountain is. It's next to like that hall. It's really beautiful, but it's like an empty lot. It's been sitting there for years and years and years. And every time I look at it, I'm like thinking, there's pumpkin patch, there's Easter, there's so many things we can do with it. Like, why has it been left open? And how can we, I guess, get them to either sell the place back to downtown Santa Ana, or I mean, what can we do about that?
Hazardous waste.
Yeah. So I believe you're talking about the Southern
Edison.
California Gas Company building and the accompanying yard to the east of that. So basically that's the southwest corner of Sycamore and 3rd. I've always, near the southwest corner, I've always loved that property. It used to be the northwest corner of 2nd and Sycamore. And I guess it still is technically on paper, 2nd Street still exists on paper, even though it's, like Santa Monica, it's kind of, an area that's mainly for pedestrian traffic and not for vehicular. So let me look. While we're talking, I was pulling it up. I've always wanted to get my hands on that property, and I thought, man, outdoor dining and a really cool bar and, lots of activities in there. Let's see who
it has been activated, actually. The Patchwork Festival used that, I believe, more than once, and had vendors and food in that area. So there's been experimentation with it.
Good. Okay, so I believe it is all owned by an entity called Corbiz LLC. It's weird, the yard is not showing ownership, but that used to have, I believe, electrical equipment in it. And I don't know if that was Edison or who it was, but those old yards can have some remnant cleanup that's required. And so I really don't know the state of that. I've got the parcel numbers and the property information here. I'm going to add that to my list of projects, so because I do love that property.
Yeah, please, because I know if Commissioner Russell was saying that they've had some events, it's just that I think it's such a big open space in like prime Santa Ana that I'm like, why isn't we should be seeing events all the time?
Yeah,
that should be the first place that we think about when we want to do something. I mean, very easily.
I love it.
Thank you. Any more commission comments? Yes, Commissioner Ross.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone was staying fine-tuned to the election results that came out. And if you didn't hear about Proposition 28, which I'm sure Chair McNair will talk about, it was passed resoundingly. I think it was over 50%. And again, that means that there's $1 billion going to be allocated for arts in our schools. And so what an exciting moment in California. And I hope that, again, we can continue to really develop the relationships with the school district because they might have more funding than we do moving forward. But And then because we mentioned the artist Cynthia Lujan, arts leader really, Cynthia Lujan, she has an exhibit coming up in downtown. And I mentioned that in the Santora building. She's opening during Art Walk on the 3rd, but there's an artist reception the night before. And the reason I mention it is because I think she's done us a lot of favors in terms of providing information and guidance, but also because, as Art Walk might be coming to a close, we're seeing the revitalization of spaces like the Santora building that was originally kind of where Art Walk happened, right? That's the building where a lot of artists were and where their gatherings happened. And so this might be a renaissance in terms of that. So I encourage you to attend and experience some of that. Art Walk on the 3rd. The Winter Festival, I'm excited to hopefully see some of you and get those surveys collected. And then, as I said, the Tamal Fest to celebrate some culinary arts is happening on the 12th here in Santa Ana. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone also.
Thank you. Any other commission comments? Yes, Commissioner Katz.
Airman of Note starts in 45 minutes. So if we can wrap this up,
Thank
I'm
you
ready
very
to go
much.
with
Yeah,
my.
Me too. Yes, thank you. And hopefully you'll fill out a survey while you're there or help us do the surveys when you attend. So thank you for pointing that out. Just a couple of comments. Yes, Prop 28, we're trying to sort that out. That's going to mean a lot of things. I'm curious because we did just have elections and we do have a new council coming together, and hopefully next year as things settle in, we'll be able to make a presentation to the city council so they understand what it is that we do and have those ideas and data. Also, I look forward to meeting with the ad hoc committee. Tram will help us set up those dates and then we can report back. And yes, I'd like to see the city and the school district be a part of a whole ecosystem together and build pipelines from the youth, get into the rich arts and culture things that are happening within the city, and economic viable pipelines for them to learn craft and to be artists and be on that registry, that wherever that may land. That said, we are not going to have a meeting next month in December. We're going to give the gift of time and go dark for the month of December and reconvene with the new year and the new city council to see how all that pans out, and any new commissioners that may be appointed. So we are looking forward to continuing this work in the coming year. And thank you in the season of gratitude to each and every one of you. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to all the work that the heart and mind and passion, and we will continue to be doing work even though we're not meeting in this meeting. Things will be happening. So thank you, and I hope to see you at the concert, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Happy New Year to everybody. And with that,
Happy New Year.
this meeting is officially adjourned.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Take
Take care.
good care.
Good night, everyone.
Everyone, happy
Bye,
holidays.
everybody. Happy holidays.